streets. Suede Timbs on my beats makes my cipher complete. Weather cruising in a 6 cab. I'm on Taro Jeep, I can't call it. The beats make me.
Hey everybody. I think this is the moment that most of you have been waiting for. So not that he needs an introduction, but I want to introduce someone I'm proud to call a friend, an investor, and in my opinion, the best to ever do it. So everybody, Nas. So you're involved in a lot of stuff, right? From obviously the music stuff to being an investor, spokesman of brands like Bevel and Hennessy, right? You have a clothing line in History, a retail store, 12 a.m. Run. You advise a number of tech companies like Genius, plus a Harvard fellow, recipient of the W.E.B. Du Bois Medal. And you're here today with us, so thank you very much. Appreciate that. Of course. So before we dive into this a little bit, talk to me about some of the apps that you use to get you through life.
Man, Postmates. Postmates is my favorite app.
Me too.
It's made life a lot more simple for me. It's everything. I'm disappointed when places don't use Postmates, and I only see them becoming better, like maybe like delivering women.
No doubt.
In the near future, for lonely guys, for the lonely guys out there, maybe in the future. I mean, I see it growing.
Options are endless.
Yeah, it's just cool. My favorite app. Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm kidding.
So obviously you joined Snapchat recently too.
Yeah. Snapchat, Twitter, the usuals, Instagram.
Of course.
Yeah, that's the main things.
Cool. So I remember, ever since I can remember listening to your music and kind of early hip hop, there's been an emphasis on technology. And we were talking about this a little bit before. It's like, what was a piece of technology like as you were growing up, where if you had it, it was like you made it?
If you had it, you made it. There's different times when we'll go back, the Atari games.
Yep.
If you had that, you killed it. It was over.
100%.
Then things started to advance, and ColecoVision and things like that would happen, and then you realize you're in the Stone Ages with Atari.
Yep.
And then Nintendo and all these things. But I remember being in that's better. I remember being in a computer class in maybe 4th grade, 5th, something like that, maybe 6th, I don't know. And the teacher, Mr. Willis, was really, really trying to push us to get into programming. And we thought he was ridiculous. We thought he was out of his mind, and we didn't pay attention, and he was a very serious guy. And eventually I started to try to listen to him and pay attention in the class. It didn't seem like computers were a thing that was really important for a young kid at that time. But it started to wear on me, and at the time, the Commodore 64 was the thing. And I got my mom to get me a Commodore 64, and I had the whole thing set up in the room with the nice monitor, the keyboard and everything, and I only turned it on once.
Yep.
I didn't use it because I didn't pay attention in class. And I wish I did, because, there was things about what he was teaching me that was really interesting. But I never followed through. But I had the computer, and that thing, I always think about that. And that was the start for me. I kind of I wanted to know more about it, but
Yeah.
I figured down the road maybe.
It's a lot, yeah. I got lucky because I got a brother who's really good at that kind of stuff. So I just kind of let him do that, and I just kind of ride his coattails.
Yeah.
So nowadays, I mean, what is it, or is technology kind of so ubiquitous that there really is nothing left? Like everybody has the latest phone the day it comes out. Like everybody has the latest gaming system the day it comes out. Does that notion still exist?
Yeah, smartphones is everything. They are like the keyboard to the world, and you gotta have it. And I remember when there was not like a lot of cell phones around. I'd say early '90s was when a couple of cell phones illegally got into the streets. And we got our hands on some of the flip phones. And it changed everything. It was the end of the payphone because everyone had these bootleg phones.
The big ones too, right?
The big ones, man. And it was like, it blew my mind because I remember like shows like Miami Vice when the bad guy would have the big phone.
Yeah, of course.
I was like, wow, I want that. I had a friend who had one that didn't work, but he pulled it out of his car around girls.
Mm-hmm. Then it worked. Yeah,
that worked.
Yeah, no
that
doubt.
Worked.
No doubt about it.
So, when the smaller versions came out that you flip open, that changed everything.
Right. So you remember what your first phone was?
The company?
Yeah.
Probably was maybe Motorola.
Yeah, like the StarTAC, one of those.
Yeah, StarTAC, yeah.
Yep. So we're gonna talk about what mobile means to you, and we're gonna kind of cover this from a few different angles. As a father, as an artist, as a businessman. So for me, part of the reason I got into mobile is because anytime you have a device that half the people in this world have, and is in your hand 80% of your waking hours. I mean, there's such a massive opportunity, and mobile and the software created for the mobile device has completely transformed the way that we communicate, the way that we do business, the way that we in many cases also kind of create content. So, as I mentioned before, I saw you sign up for Snapchat somewhat recently. What was what was the driver there?
Just trying to keep up with where everyone else is going, and not look like the old guy. And so I don't really use it like that. My friend does it for me.
Okay. Yeah. By any means, yeah.
And my idea is like boring, boring. He's like, yo, you gotta show people you're doing things. So I probably put a few things up.
Yeah. Well, you're a pretty private person too, so putting yourself out there that's a lot.
You got to get used to it. It's like, but you don't want to feel left out. I want to know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. And how do you think about platforms like Snapchat and YouTube and things like Vine? Like, how have they changed content creation, or how have they influenced it over the past few years?
Well, YouTube is the best out of all of it for me because you can research, you can dig up things on people. I like Richard Pryor, and I can find interviews. I think he's brilliant, and I can find interviews on him, and I could put things together. I was watching a movie with Sean Penn plays Mickey Cohen. He was a gangster in Los Angeles. I didn't know Los Angeles had gangsters like that. I knew Chicago, I knew New York, but I thought Hollywood was just a different animal. I didn't think they could exist out there. But Mickey Cohen, he caught my attention, and then I saw on YouTube like an old interview of him, but it only lasted like 10 seconds. So it made me order his autobiography. And I fell in love with his whole style. And, but YouTube, if you're reading a book about someone, and you can just look it up, and look that person up and actually see them, and you can watch people like Barbara Walters' career grow. You know, it's kind of like
that rabbit hole of YouTube clips. I mean, you can spend hours and hours and hours.
And she was young.
Yeah. Who knew? Yeah. Who knew?
You know. Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, but it's fun. It's so much fun. The television shows, Saturday morning cartoons doesn't happen anymore, right?
Yeah.
And that happened, and YouTube is evidence.
Right.
Because you can go, look, this happened. And I used to buy Hot Wheel, the racetracks, when I was a kid and stuff, and the commercials. Sometimes I go into 1984 Christmas commercials on YouTube.
Yeah, it's the best.
And I almost cry. It's emotional. That's what YouTube does for me.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you know, I think another effect of these platforms is that anybody can be a content creator, right? It feels like we're in this generation. It's like the broadcast generation. So, you know, I know you have a couple of kids. Like, how do they use social media?
Well, my daughter, she has like a makeup lip gloss company, and she's like using that to, you know, of course, to launch the whole thing and run a business online, on Instagram, on Twitter, on her website. It's a business. People can become entrepreneurs like that, you know.
Yep.
It's much easier to do these days.
Yeah, and then just in terms of content, I mean, as a consumer, I mean, what do you think it means to be like the you know, as you say, like the son of the cassette era versus growing up in this broadcast era where everything is kind of all over the place?
I miss the cassette tapes and the physical thing, you know, the album cover and opening up the CD and looking at the credits and all the notes and stuff. That's gone. I mean, but there are kids today who don't know what that is, so then they don't miss it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
That's about it.
And do you think it's like, as an artist, do you think it's tougher to kind of stay on top of these trends these days versus what it was like when you were first coming up? And like, do you feel like you have to conform your style to these like individual platforms? Like, yeah, as we were talking, like, do you feel that pressure to like have that like hot one line, or you do what you do kind of independent of all that, and people like it or they don't?
No, not really. You do have to do things the way things are done. I mean, you can't expect to release a record today and get great results if you're not paying attention to the way records are released today. It's changing all the time. So, yeah, I haven't released an album in probably going on 4 years. So things have changed just in that time alone. But it's cool because, you know, the world is always evolving, things are evolving, and you need to be a part of that. Or you're gonna mess up, and that's just the way it is. There's no time to complain. You have to just jump on board with what's happening, because what you do is you discover new ways to release your record and stuff. Today everything's streaming, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, but today if you listen to Kendrick Lamar, you're streaming Kendrick Lamar. There's information there might be information on me, you know? Yeah. So kids could hear about me, who's this Nas guy, by listening to one of the newer artists. Yeah. And that information sharing is something that they didn't have years ago. So it's gonna pan out right for all the artists, I think. And then at the end of the day, it's just changing.
And do you ever look to these platforms to discover new artists or new talent, or just kind of like find inspiration, if nothing else?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Like, the information is there, so it's Spotify. You know, you listen to one guy's thing, and other music comes on, and you probably you wasn't even looking to listen to this guy, because you listen to her, and then she leads you to this, and then, yes.
It's powerful stuff. Well, cool. So, in terms of these platforms, I mean, who do you think, like, which artists, in your opinion, have kind of really embraced these mediums kind of most effectively? You look at, like, kind of what Madonna did back in the day with, like, music videos, right? Like, how that kind of, like, set her up for all the success, taking advantage of what was, at the time, a completely new medium. Like, who's taking advantage of these platforms really well?
Beyonce releasing a record with videos to every song and the whole thing. And she's doing what Madonna's is equivalent to what Madonna's doing then. It's like now it's like the whole package is not just a record. It's merchandising, it's stadium tours and things like that. And Chance the Rapper just released the whole thing streaming, and Gaga did something with Amazon a while ago, and yeah.
You guys got like Khaled, who now has like 60 million views per day on Snapchat. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
He just gets on the, I don't know if you've seen it, with DJ Khaled, just gets on Snapchat and tells the people where he's at and where to meet him, and then 1,000 people, 2,000 people just show up where he's at. That's power.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, you've been on there a few times. I mean, the voice that he has created for himself using a platform like that. I mean, he was always big and popular before that, but not like it is today.
He really reinvented himself a whole lot higher than he was with Snapchat. It's crazy.
So one thing, we've talked a little bit about, kind of how you have to watch what you put out there on social media, even when you see stuff that may piss you off a little bit. Important social issues like Black Lives Matter, things like that. How do you think your mobile and just like the ever presence of these platforms has impacted like how you think about like what you put out there?
It's cool because if I don't release a record in 4 years, it keeps me, the smartphones and the mobile, and it keeps me out there. There's always information on me that's gonna it's gonna be on your face, it's gonna be in your timeline, it's gonna be so much things that outside of just the record, that personal things about me, things that I'm getting into, old footage of concerts, just things that give you the history on me that just releasing a record doesn't do. It gives you everything.
But do you feel like it's probably easier now than ever to reach tens, if not hundreds of millions of people, like instantly? Does that kind of force you to kind of pull back and say, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't say that, or maybe I should be extra careful?
I already said all the crazy things. so people are going to just discover some of the crazy things I've said in the past. So you can't hide anymore. You can't think, oh, that's that lucky we got away with that years ago. It's forever now.
Yeah, completely. And you have a line on one of your songs, "Daughters," about your daughter posting something inappropriate to Instagram. I mean, what kind of challenges does mobile present to you as a father?
Wow. Well, now you have to not just watch out for your kid's friends, you have to watch out for her followers and who she's following and what your kids are doing. And it's a fast thing. It moves fast, and you have to be aware. Like, you have to control it. You have to. Well, she's 21 now, so I can't do shit. So excuse my language.
Yeah.
She's just,
But your son is a lot younger.
My son is going on 7, and I think about that because he likes to get my phone to play games and stuff with it, but he's going to want his own phone, and I don't know when he should have one. And
is he asking for one yet?
Not really.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And like as you, like some of the lessons that you've learned through raising your daughter, like what do you think like some of the ground rules will be as like he does start to ask for the phone and eventually like you do have to give him the phone?
Well, you just have to watch it. You just have to teach him right and wrong. You know, you gotta let the kids kind of teach you too. You know, you gotta watch them and let them explore a little bit, but just make sure they don't have the wrong thing.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a lot different than we were growing up, where not everything was recorded, not everything was so permanent, right?
Right. And the flip side is that his imagination is going to be different than the way it was for us growing up. The things he sees with the phone, you know, is going to spark something in him to, you know, want to probably create things, hopefully.
Right, yeah.
That will be really positive in that space. He might want to create the new Instagram. He might figure out something, because this is his world now. The kids live in this world. And, you know, he's going to probably come up with something cool. I hope so.
I have high hopes for him.
Me too.
But do you think about like the flip side of that, like the social pressures to get like a million likes on something that you put out, like the bullying that happens? You know, I think that you were alluding to that. Like it's a different word. Does that worry you?
It doesn't worry me as a father. We're street kids, and he's not in the streets. But you know, I want him to be tough. And I mean, who doesn't worry about things for their children, about things like that? But he's got to be tough. This world is not for, you know, games. It's for really, you know, taking care of your business. And he needs to know that, like whether it's followers, whether it's kids in school, these are conversations that we're going to have. And we have conversations about, you know, how you should behave in class, how you should behave, how you should respect others, and normal things you talk to with your kids, talk about with your kids. And it will be the same with the phone. It'll be the same. And it's crazy. We have to teach our kids now this new world.
While we're still figuring it out ourselves in many ways.
At the same time.
Right. Yeah, and that's interesting. That kind of tenacity, that thick skin that you have to have in the world. I mean, I think that's what, you know, I've seen kind of connect the world of hip hop with like entrepreneurship so much. You know, when
it's spreading. Not to cut you off. Hip hop is spreading so much because of that, and it's probably the scariest thing ever to some people. That, you know, your kids can figure out what's going on. You can't hide things too much from them. You know, at some point they're going to see all the things that you told them about. They're going to look at it and take it in and make their own decisions about it, that they might not want to share with their parents if the parent is, you know, doesn't seem like they're understanding. It doesn't seem like they're able to sit and talk and have open discussion about that child's life. This child's going to get an education on their phone.
Right.
Yeah.
One way or another. And so I guess like to kind of go back to the parallels between entrepreneurship and hip hop. I mean, like when you look at the early days of hip hop and what it stood for as this kind of revolution, fight the power, disrupting the establishment. I mean, there's a lot of parallels with like startups, right? Like we're trying to unseat the big companies who are moving slow and they're outdated and they're not doing things right, in our personal opinion. You know, there's definitely a lot of history lessons to be shared, kind of mutually. What do you think some of the things that you've learned from your success in hip hop? Like, what are the lessons that you share when you're like advising companies or investing in companies through Queensbridge?
I offer a different perspective. I offer something that maybe everyone else in the room is not aware of. I come from something that's a little different. So, you know, it shows you that it's a new day where we should not, if we sit down and we're trying to figure out something, I have a lot that I can offer that, you know, speaks for the people that we're trying to get this stuff to. I can speak to the company about how to reach these kids a better way, a more organic, a more genuine way. The way I approach my music is the way I like to see things happen in the business that I do. You know, I like to meet leaders. I like to talk to leaders like yourself. And, you know, we're the type of people that need to be together with reshaping the future. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it did. I mean, there's so much in tech that I think, and even entrepreneurship, where it kind of feels robotic, and it needs to be humanized to a large degree.
It needs to be humanized, and I watch what the guy Elon Musk is doing, and I think, like, you know, if I was at NASA, I'd be like, this guy needs to stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop him, or let's control him, you know?
Right, yeah. Iron Man, right?
You know, I like that kind of thing. And that's what, you know, comparing hip-hop people to people like yourself and that guy, it's like we're one and the same because we come with something new that the establishment is not that ready for, you know?
Yeah. You know, and the other major kind of influencer in the early days of hip-hop was kind of fueled by this new technology, like drum beats, and making it easier to produce the music, right? And as the technology took shape, it became a lot easier for people to create content, right? There's lots of parallels with the early days of hip-hop and kind of like where we're at in mobile in terms of content creation. Like, what do you, not that any of us really know, but like, what do you think is the next big thing? Is it like virtual reality?
Yeah, virtual reality is it's amazing stuff.
Have you put on one of the?
Yeah.
It's nuts, right?
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Okay. What else? Like, what else have you seen where it's just like it's kind of blown your mind recently?
I don't know. Any way you can identify your customer and continue to reach out to that person and build a relationship with, I don't say customer, but like